Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture.
And I'm Andy Murray from WhatCulture. And coming up today, we're going to tell you about the latest ex-WWE star to debut in Impact Wrestling. I've got a backstage update on Natalya, Kairi, Sane and Shayna Baszler. And on top of that, we're going to talk a little bit about Cody's mystery opponent for tonight's AEW Dynamite.
Plus, a former NXT star debuted in AEW last night. How did Randy Orton and Big Show do in the ratings? Crap, really crap. And two former indie promotions may be coming to the WWE network. Just a quick caveat as well, if you can hear any noise during this news video, I'm doing the most middle-class thing in the world ever and having my loft converted today. Fancy. This is the news.
Look forward to some builder's language peppering this video throughout. Anyway, let's kick things off by talking about the latest ex-WWE guy to cross over into Impact Wrestling. So, Slammiversary was a busy one in that regard. Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows, Eric Young, EC3, Heath. They were all there. They were all showing up. It was a night of surprises, apart from Gallows and Anderson, obviously. That was announced beforehand. This continued on last night's Impact show, which by all accounts, haven't checked it out myself yet, but by all accounts was a tremendous little episode of TV. Looking forward to seeing that after work. Kurt Hawkins is there now, sort of. He's going by his real name, Brian Myers. He's competed as that before. There was a clip hyping his debut, very short, about 15 seconds long. Impact have put it on their Twitter as well, saying, "Did you think we were done at Slammiversary?" So he's going to show up sometime, presumably. The clip itself is peppered with little clips from what sounds like a creative meeting. There's phrases thrown around like trust the process, close your mouth, and we just don't have anything for you at the moment. You're just missing something, kind of doing the rounds. No word on when exactly Myers is going to start there or if he is signed full-time or if this is just going to be a short run, but he's heading to Impact Wrestling. He tweeted after the show, being a cheeky little scamp, saying, "Well, Vince McMahon, I'm sorry, I love you. Super kick, Impact Wrestling, let's go." Happy for the guy. It's a really tough labour market at the moment with, incomes down, revenues shot to pieces as a result of what's currently going on around the world. So good for him for landing an Impact, and let's see what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really exciting time for Impact Wrestling. The trolls will say, "Oh, they've just sweeped up all the, WWE cast-offs." But I think this is different to when you remember TNA would just sign literally anyone who left WWE. We all know what happened on Black Wednesday. We're going to be talking about another wrestler who left WWE in a second about that. But you look at the names they've picked up. Obviously, a lot of them are former Impact stars as well. Plus, you combine that with the fact that Impact Wrestling have been making a really good product in the interim before they even picked up all these WWE guys. I think I'm expecting big things from the second half of the year from Impact Wrestling. If you haven't checked them out in quite some time, if you just think, "Oh, isn't that TNA?" Trust me, it's really not. It has transformed in the last, year, maybe year plus. And it's well worth checking out, Andy.
Yeah, Don Callis and Scott D'Amore have done a really, really good job since assuming lead creative there. It's a good little product. I mean, that sounds so condescending. I'm sorry. It's a good little product. It's a good show. Slammiversary was a very good pay-per-view. Lots of highs on that show for sure. The debuts were just a part of that, but there was also a really awesome knockouts title match between Deonna Purrazzo and Jordynne Grace. Lots of cool stuff across the show. They've got ground-up prospects like Ace Austin, who they've built really well and is definitely worth following. I think the North are one of the best tag teams in the world at the moment, really. I mean, they've been absolutely tremendous. Josh Alexander and Ethan Page. Lots of reasons to pay attention. And if you like wacky golf stuff, they've got that aplenty as well, with all kinds of crazy characters and the undead realm and all these things. So definitely worth checking back in with Impact if you haven't done it in a long time. Lots of cool stuff going on there. And, a quick point on the signing ex-WWE guys thing. It's the talent pool is so shallow these days, you haven't really got much choice but to sign ex-WWE guys at the moment. You can plug people from indie promotions and stuff, but if they're not ready, what's the point in passing over someone purely because they used to work for WWE? If they can offer someone, bring them in.
Yeah, when you think about the people that WWE and AEW have on their books, Impact Wrestling have still got a hell of a roster. And the reunited Motor City Machine Guns, who are one of my favourite tag teams outside of WWE. But let's continue talking about ex-WWE wrestlers. A former NXT star made an appearance on last night's episode of AEW Dark. You'll know him as Tino Sabatelli, the American footballer who was on Breaking Ground and what have you. He debuted on AEW last night as Sabu. Sabi teaming with Brady Pierce even to face the best friends in a losing effort. It's the usual sort of fare you'd expect from this sort of thing. The jobbers in this scenario got a lot more offense in than you would expect. You sense a bit like with MJ Jenkins last week, I believe, on AEW Dynamite. It's a bit of a tryout. No word on whether MJ Jenkins or Tino Sabatelli have signed with AEW. But nice to see AEW giving these guys who are, another part of Black Wednesday, opportunities to shine.
Sabatelli's a really fascinating case because, he came into to WWE in 2015 or 14, whenever it was, and he came off the back of 6 seasons in the NFL in his past, and he's a really well-off guy and all this stuff. So he didn't need to come through this grinding process to become a professional wrestler, this grueling career, but he did it anyway. He was highlighted on the Breaking Ground special on the network. He wasn't, the most prominent fixture on TV, but he was on relatively regularly for a while. He had the tag team with Riddick Moss, and then he tore, I believe it was his pectoral muscle, and he just didn't wrestle for 2 years, and there were no updates on what on earth was going on with the guy, and then he was cut in April. So he's such a strange case, a really unique case in modern pro wrestling, and it's hard to know what the heck his wrestling future is going to look like. But you're right, the match last night definitely felt like something of a tryout. I've always been really enamored with this guy, and I have no idea why. I think it's because, number one, his entrance music in NXT was just the goofiest thing in the world, talking about having money stacked so fat he can't even wrap his hand around it. Just great stuff. And also, he's got an absolutely outstanding look for TV wrestling as well. So, if they can put something together, they might have something, although, he never looked like the most natural pro wrestler in the world. Again, we got to give things chances, so let's do that, right?
Would you say it's good to see Sabi back on telly?
Hey, that's really good. Put that one in a bottle and unleash it.
It's on YouTube. It doesn't really count. I'm not having that.
Well, no, nightmare. Anyway, let's keep on rolling. Let's talk some WWE plans at the moment. So we talked yesterday. Kairi Sane probably wrapped her WWE commitments, according to PW Insider. Monday's tapings at the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. Now, WWE's original plans called for them to tape the 27th of July episode, next week's episode as well, so Sane could be on that show. This means we could get a write-off angle, and it could feature one of Natalya or Shayna Baszler. This is according to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio. He's talking here about how WWE had originally planned to have Natalya attack Kairi Sane and lay her out. That would have been her write-off. That could have potentially led to a women's title program with Asuka at SummerSlam. Of course, Natalya is currently working with Lana as a manager, but she's been off TV for several weeks because I believe her husband, I almost called him TJ Perkins there, TJ Wilson, Tyson Kidd, had some kind of illness, but both of them tested negative for the ongoing thing that's floating around the world, Rona Lisa. So it may not be Natalya anymore. But Shayna Baszler is another name who's been speculated as well. She was watching the match between Kairi Sane and Bayley, saying she had a vested interest in what was going on. So there's now speculation that we could see some kind of write-off angle next week with Sane getting attacked, which they could have filmed on Monday. Hence the accuracy of the PW Insider report, leading to Baszler and Asuka for SummerSlam. I think that's a match a lot of people would want to see. The Natalya match might not get people as excited, but Sane versus Baszler, Asuka versus Baszler, that sounds like a banger.
Honestly, I could not believe this story when I read it. It's like someone turning around and going, so it's come down to 2 possible contenders for Drew McIntyre at SummerSlam. It's either Randy Orton, the obvious choice, who's going to attack someone backstage and use that as a springboard to go into this WWE Championship program, or Gary from Accounts.
Gary the
What are you on
Goat
about with
Garbot.
Natalya? When you said that, I was like, if you said, what do you reckon Andy's going to say there? I would have 100% guessed Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. Because, the whole Nia Jax thing with Kairi Sane and the fact that they've just sort of dropped any championship match. At the end of the day, I hated it, but Nia Jax didn't have a proper championship match, did she? They just both got counted out and they went, well, that's that one dealt with. Everyone's gone home happy with there. insane. Like, I get it. They're always trying to sort of reheat Natalya, and they've done the whole, you think you've got bloody problems with Lana storyline. But no, of course, have Shayna Baszler murder Kairi Sane. She's off to Japan, have a lovely time there, and then set up Shayna Baszler as a credible threat, because once again, you've undercut her at every possible turn. Set her up as a credible possible threat to Asuka. Look, I want to see Asuka versus Shayna Baszler at WrestleMania. I don't think I'm going to get that, but if I just get it, I'll be happy right now.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think it's the best possible outcome. Who knows if Natalya's even been back at TV tapings as well after, taking the time away from recent shows and so forth. But Shayna's the match. It's the match. Just book it.
I love Natalya, nothing against her, but it's not a SummerSlam worthy feud, is it?
No.
At the end of the day, you're potentially going to have a women's match headline SummerSlam. You should have a women's match headline SummerSlam, in my opinion. Bayley versus Sasha Banks, that big blow off. I know there's no crowds, blah, 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 ongoing global bastard. Imagine pairing that with Asuka versus Shayna Baszler. It would be a hell of a card. And I'll take SummerSlam if we can't have WrestleMania. Right, let's talk about this week's episode of Monday Night Raw. Once again, did crap in the ratings. That's an official term. Tying the show's lowest ever average in the 18 to 49s, if we're talking more about demos, 0.46. The total views did increase from 1.56 last week to 1.63. Good going, guys. But the headline story coming off the back of this is that main event between Randy Orton and Big Show, which was just a ratings disaster for WWE. Dave Meltzer last night tweeted, Orton versus Show did a 0.42, 18 to 49 in Q3. That is staggeringly bad when put into perspective. Worst quarter performance in 27 plus year history of the show for about promoted for weeks. Turns out, Andy, that 18 to 49s don't want to watch 40-year-old guys wrestle, because if they wanted to watch Orton Big Show, they could just watch all of the times Orton's fought Big Show in the past.
Yeah, this didn't work out. This didn't work out at all. So at the moment, obviously, you can attribute the rating slide to a lot of things. The overall decline in pro wrestling in general, people watching less TV in general, and of course the ongoing global bastard. However, this is a match that WWE promoted for several weeks. They built it up. They had a bunch of different angles and promos, put it in the main event slot, potentially in the hope that it would, do a decent number, and it's ended up doing the worst quarter hour ever. Maybe, Big Show's been a useful guy to have around through all of this, right? He's filled in a number of big slots when people have been pulled away and haven't been able to make tapings or haven't traveled or whatever, and, it's been fine to a degree, but this obviously just didn't pan out, and we got the numbers to show that. Next week is going to be super interesting for the ratings because the MLB's back. The week after that, I think the NBA's back as well. It's going to get tougher and tougher. This was WWE's last Monday night without proper sporting competition for a while. So hope the numbers hold up. As someone who is dependent on pro wrestling to make a living and just a fan, you want to see every show do well, whether or not you thought it was a good show or a bad show or an in-between show, because it's good for the business. However, it's going to be very difficult.
Exactly, but just to cover our arses, if you like football, not the American sort, the English sort, football, not soccer, football, go and check out WhatCulture Football. We're doing stuff on there as well, and that's still going, and that's always going to get viewers. So go and support us, go and subscribe to that channel, and subscribe to the podcast as well.
Yeah, big us up. Speaking of bigging people up, it looks like AEW are going to do that on Dynamite tonight. So Cody, I almost called him Cody Khan. What the hell am I? Chris Jericho. Cody is going to defend his TNT Championship against a top independent wrestler. Exciting stuff on tonight's episode of AEW Dynamite. Tony Khan tweeted this out yesterday. They've got a nice shiny match graphic with the exact phrasing there as well. There's a lot of speculation on who this could be, obviously. You could... can you classify the released WWE people as top independent wrestlers if they haven't worked an indie date since leaving? You might. You might look at a guy like Cassius Ohno / Chris Hero. You might look at anyone, really, although I think the logical name to look at here is probably Warhorse, who is the reigning IWTV independent wrestling champion. He was name dropped by Arn Anderson on an AEW video not long ago. That would probably be the obvious one, although I personally am rooting for Eddie Kingston. Adam Wilborn, what do you reckon?
Warhorse. Just make it Warhorse. You can't dangle that carrot in front of me, Arn Anderson, and then not deliver. But like you say, it's a great tease, and we'll be discussing it later on as part of our Wednesday Night War preview with myself and the Dadley Boys. No doubt they'll have a load of speculation about that. Let's wrap up with our final story of the day. Two former indie promotions could be heading to the WWE Network by the end of the year. This is according to WrestleVotes, who tweeted the following on Tuesday, saying sources state both Evolve and WXW will be coming to the WWE Network before the end of 2020. Now, Evolve, of course, ceased operations after being bought out by WWE a few weeks ago. There's the drilling starting. I'll wrap this up quickly. The 1st of March was the last time they put on a show. Obviously, massive financial problems as a result of the cancellation of WrestleMania 36 weekend. WXW still operational in Germany, but haven't put a show on since March.
Yeah. Oh God, I've totally lost my train of thought because of the drilling. Evolve, I think everyone saw that coming when WWE bought the promotion out. WXW have that working relationship as well. Difficult to pick apart these situations given the short length of time. However, it'll be cool to have the Evolve archive up there in particular because the promotion's not running any more shows, and I really want to revisit some of my favourite old matches from 2015 and 16 with your Keith Lees and your Matt Riddles and your Timothy Thatchers and everyone else. So that'll be a nice addition to the network for sure. Yeah,
I'm going to try and educate myself on a lot of stuff that I've missed out on that you've alluded to there, because I'm kind of clueless. Before people got to WWE, it'd be well worth checking out once that gets on the WWE Network. Right, let's move on to Twitter questions at WhatCulture WWE. Of course, if you want to get in touch with us. First question today comes from Index JW, who says, so, Sister Abigail, do you think it would be better to have Sister... I've got to make sure I don't set off my Echo Dot. Alexa... as a siren sort of figure, and then have Sister Abigail as someone twisted like Cross, or do you like Alexa as Abigail? WWE posted that person with Sister Abigail as the caption. What do you reckon, Andy?
I would kind of like, personally, and this is entirely subjective, I don't really want to see Sister Abigail as any kind of real character that exists. Like the Alexa Bliss flashback on the Swamp Fight was fine, but it just kind of all ties me back and brings me back to that awful period of Bray Wyatt's career, like the last few years of the Eater of Worlds run and the teased match with Finn Balor when he was going to dress up as Sister Abigail. And I don't know, man. It's a little bit... It's goofy, right? And I like goofy when it's funny, like when it's kind of like, hey, look at this mess, this is fun. But it doesn't kind of strike me in that way. It just seems like it takes itself a bit too seriously. So it's not for me. I personally wouldn't want to see it, but if you want to see it, that's cool, man, because it's subjective, isn't it?
Exactly, and I'm sure a lot of people really enjoyed what we saw from Little Miss Bliss at Extreme Rules, certainly judging by the internet. Anyway, next question today comes from Neil, who says, a lot of people want an Evolution 2 to happen, please God. What are your thoughts on it being an NXT Evolution 2 on a Wednesday night to potentially beat AEW in the ratings?
I could absolutely see them doing that, man. That is very WWE, isn't it? They love a little bit of counter-programming, and fair play. It's a viewership war, it's a wrestling war, it's what you do. Yeah, I could absolutely see them doing that, although I think it would be a bit of a shame. Because I would love to see the full breadth of WWE women's roster involved. The NXT women's roster is absolutely tremendous. There's great wrestlers top to bottom. There are some fantastic wrestlers who are barely even able to make TV. Deonna Purrazzo was cut. She did nothing in that division, and she's absolutely phenomenal. There's just so many people there. However, man, I want to see Sasha on that pay-per-view. I want to see Asuka. I want to see Bayley, whoever else you can name. I want to see everyone, not just the NXT wrestlers. However, I can definitely see them doing that.
And I could also see them having their cake and eating it too there, Andy, by having Sasha say she's going to turn up in NXT for an announcement and basically say, I've beaten everyone, so what's the problem? Yeah. And then have NXT stars come out and challenge her. Right, I'll wrap up quickly. Final question today comes from Dan, who says, hi guys, I know this wrestler isn't with WWE anymore, but I want to get your take on Cassius Ohno. Push too much, or underused? What do you think, Andy?
Cassius Ohno, or Chris Hero, is one of the best independent wrestlers of all time. A top 5 for that for me. Bryan Danielson may be one of the few people who can actually rival him to the top spot. Tricky for him in WWE. They absolutely should have done more with him in his first run there. In his second one, however, I always got the feeling that he was coming in, and I could be wrong with this, so please correct me if you have inside knowledge on this, but I always got the impression that he was coming in knowing that he wasn't necessarily going to be like a pushed guy, and that he was going to potentially be like a player coach with this wealth of knowledge that he could pass on to other people and put other people over and go over to NXT UK and work with people there, help people get better, lift people up. So I don't have any major complaints about how his second WWE run was handled. I think he was probably, relatively okay with that. Again, I might be completely wrong. However, he is a wonderful pro wrestler. I do think he could have done so much more there, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him kill it again on the indies, which I have no doubt he will do. It's a shame it couldn't have been more, but I think that was the plan.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be that what if about him on his first run. He was going to be in the Shield, wasn't he?
That was CM Punk apparently pitched him instead of Roman Reigns. So,
but I have to say, I know Riddle's had some phenomenal matches, obviously. But I think what Cassius Ohno gave him by allowing him to beat him in 5 seconds or whatever at that takeover just made everyone really sit up and take notice. So credit to Cassius Ohno. And like you say, can't wait to see what he does on the indies. Right, let's move on to today's and finally. And we've been stuck on this bloody lockdown thanks to the ongoing global bastard for months now. Everyone has done different stuff. I'm getting my loft converted. I built a shed the other day. And it's nice to see you don't always have to, learn new stuff or like Roman Reigns has done, get absolutely jacked during the ongoing global bastard. Almost said the word I'm not supposed to say, otherwise we'll get demonetized, because I saw this tweet from Finn Balor who said, I'm not sure if I'm not... I'll say that again. He said, I used being stuck at home basically very wisely by watching all 180 episodes of Seinfeld. Andy, what have you binged whilst you've been stuck inside?
Donuts, mostly. Donuts and coffee. No, New Girl on Netflix. We've watched like maybe 6 series in about 2 weeks. So we are burning through that like... someone who likes incense burns through incense. That's a terrible analogy, but yeah, we've absolutely destroyed it.
Yeah, I've watched New Girl just like you. I've watched Modern Family. If you haven't seen it, for God's sake, watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's one of the best TV shows out there. And I've watched this new show on Netflix, Andy. I will heartily recommend it. It's called Breaking Bad. I've just watched season 1.
Ah, that's the show about Heidenreich, isn't it? That's the one.
That's the one.
That's the
right.
one.
We're going to get comments. I'm going to wrap up before I get drilled on. Let us know your thoughts on everything we discussed there in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Plus you can let us know your thoughts on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there, follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray at
Andy H Murray. The H stands for Heidenreich. He knocks the one.
Follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. For now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.